Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, my sister thinks that personal training is a waste of money as most people can exercise and work out on their own. What do you say to people who think like this? It's not much I can say to people who think like this. If that's how they think, it's not my job to change their mind. But if you visit most commercial gyms and you watch people who work out, most people are just spending the majority of the time in the gym on their phones. They're not really working out. I mean, you might get a few people who are actually there to work out, but most people these days, they spend more time on TikTok and Instagram than actually doing sets in the gym. Okay. Another thing for people who hire personal trainers, a lot of people who hire personal trainers, let's take some of my clients, for example, who've been with me since 2005, 2006, they know how to work out. They know all the exercises. There's not much more I can teach them as far as exercise selection. I can't teach them a new exercise. I pretty much taught them everything that's out there. But what I can do is hold them accountable for their workouts. And that's what I do. A lot of people tell me, they said there's no way they would either A, go to the gym on their own, or if they did go to the gym on their own, they wouldn't do the same amount of volume and the same amount of intensity that they do with me in the gym. So I don't feel it's something I need to sell to people. But I will tell you that it's a huge difference from working out with an experienced, knowledgeable, reputable personal trainer versus doing it on your own. Now, if you're someone who's self-motivated and you go to the gym 5, 6 days a week on your own and you train balls to the wall, you're not on your phone cruising TikTok or Instagram, great. But unfortunately, that's really like 10% of the gym population. And if you go to a commercial gym, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. So I don't think personal training is a waste of money. If it was, I wouldn't have a business. And I'm very fortunate because most people or everyone who works with me sees the value in having a coach by their side, someone who can actually take them through a customized workout design specifically for them. So in a way, they can put themselves on autopilot. They don't have to remember sequence of exercise selection. They don't have to remember their weights from last week. They can just go in. They don't have to worry about a crowded gym. They can just go into a private facility, get their workout done, work out in the most effective and efficient manner possible, and then leave. And I mean, the stats don't lie. People who work out with trainers and coaches usually get better results than people who do it on their own. Okay. Because you have to remember, people who've gone to school to be personal trainers and coaches, they know the inside out of anatomy and physiology. So they know how to get the most out of the muscle bellies. Someone who doesn't do this for a living, they're not going to have the same amount of experience. It's like trying to fix your car versus going to a mechanic, right? Yeah, most people will have to go to a mechanic. Some people can fix their own car for sure, but you're going to be more confident going to someone who's a professional, right? So I don't think going to see a personal trainer is a waste of money. I mean, if your sister thinks that it's not my job to change your mind. There are people out there who had that viewpoint. Fortunately for me, I don't deal with people like that, but the stats don't lie. And if you go to any commercial gym, you'll see the majority of people are sitting there on their phones or talking to their neighbor. They're not working out with the utmost amount of intensity. Most of my clients get anywhere from 52 to 64 sets in a 60-minute workout. It's a lot of sets. I don't see many people at commercial gyms doing that. So you're using your time in the most efficient and effective manner. So you're getting the most out of your body, the most out of your workouts. So if you can afford to work with a personal trainer or an online coach, I would strongly advise you to do so because you will see the benefits. All right, next question. Nick, I went on vacation for 1 week and didn't go to the gym once. I eat clean most of the time, but did drink alcohol every day. I was surprised when I came back home that my weight didn't go up and I also looked leaner. I'm not complaining, but I'm curious as to why my body didn't react differently without going to the gym. Yeah, so if you don't go to the gym for a week, you're not going to lose muscle. Your body doesn't just go into a catabolic state because you stop working out for 7 days. Now, if you go take 7 days and turn it into 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, Yeah, you're going to lose some muscle mass, of course. But 7 days is not very much, right? If anything, it was probably good for your body to take that time off because it actually probably lowered your cortisol levels, right? So your body was able to release a lot of water that was probably holding onto due to stress. And even if you're not mentally stressed out, you could be physically stressed out. You know, your body could be overtrained if you're someone who does train all the time and train with the utmost amount of intensity, right? So it's actually a good thing to give your body that break every so often. So going away for a week, that's not going to have any negative impact on your physique. The good thing is that you kept your diet clean, right? Because that's huge. If you kind of shit your bed on the diet and add the alcohol in, yeah, you probably would have put on some unwanted weight. But again, it wouldn't be much because 7 days is really not a big deal. So I always advise people to take a short period of time off from the gym, not too long. I think 7 days is good, but I wouldn't extend that to like 2 or 3 weeks because it's not necessarily the physical component that's going to change. It's more the mental because if you take too long off the gym, it can be very hard to get back into going to the gym, right? So if you're someone who goes to the gym 5, 6 days a week, either with a trainer or on your own or with a training partner, and you break that habit for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it can be very hard to get back into that habit again. So going away for a week, I think that's a good amount of time. It refreshes the mind, refreshes the body. Try some different food, right? Get off your diet a little bit. Enjoy some alcohol. I don't see anything wrong with that. And like you said, you're leaner now, and you're probably coming back to the gym now, and you're more motivated again, right? So because after like that 5, 6 days, chances are you're urging to get back into the gym again, right? So I think that's a good thing to do, and it's something I advise all my clients to do is to take at least a week off a year in from the gym, from training, from your diet, just to let yourself reset. Don't go crazy, but just allow yourself to reset. Still stay relatively clean like you did on your diet. Don't drink too much, but give your body some time to rest, recover, relax, enjoy life a little bit, and then you can get back into doing your training routine. So I think that's why. I think that's why you look leaner. I think you dropped your cortisol levels, your body wasn't as stressed out, so you're not holding as much water now. And you just kind of reset your body and you're ready to get back into the gym again. So I think it's a good thing. And I think everyone should give themselves at least 1 week off a year from the gym, from their diet, and just enjoy life. Okay. Nick, how much of an impact will drinking 2 to 3 times a week have on my weight? I'm trying to lose 25 pounds, but don't want to give up my social drinking on the weekends. This will depend on what you're drinking. So if you're someone who's drinking beer and wine, that can have a really negative impact on your weight because problem with beer is people tend to drink a lot of beer and beer, it's a lot of calories. The problem with wine, same thing. They tend to drink a lot of wine. There's sugar, a lot of calories again. So you're better off. I always tell people you're better off sticking to hard liquor, something like tequila, gin, right? Maybe some rum, vodka, and mixing that with something like club soda, right? Or if you're going to have pop, Diet Coke, Diet 7 Up, Diet Ginger Ale, but staying away from the sugary drinks. So you don't want to be mixing that with orange juice, right? You don't want to be mixing that with any type of fruit juice, pineapple juice, pina coladas, cocktails. Like those are things you want to stay away from. But I always advise my clients if you're going to go out and drink, try to stick to the clear hard liquors. Something like I said, gin, rum, vodka, tequila. Tequila is not that bad for you. It's not that crazy bad for you. Stay away from your wines, stay away from your spirits, stay away from your beers, anything where you're going to drink a lot of, right? Because it's again, beer will go through you like water. I know guys who I train who will sit down and have anywhere from 12 to 15 beers in a sitting. Like that's a lot of calories. So when you drink hard stuff, you're not going to drink as much. And if you mix it with, like I said, club soda preferably, or you mix it with a diet pop at least, you're not going to get those additional calories from your mix, right? So again, this will depend on what you're doing. But if it were me, I would try to limit that intake to once a week and don't binge drink, right? Give yourself a window of time where you'll allow yourself to drink. Don't try to fit as much alcohol you can in that window of time, but say you start at 6 o'clock at night and then you say, okay, by 10 o'clock, I'm done. That's it. No more. Because you have to remember too, it's not just the calories, but it's how you're going to feel the day after you drink. So if you're hungover the day after you drink, chances are you're probably not going to go to the gym. And if you do go to the gym, chances are you're not going to train again with the utmost amount of intensity. So it's going to be a very lackluster workout. So that's going to affect your progress. That's going to affect your weight loss, right? So you got to think of the long-term ramifications of one night out from binge drinking. So that's why it can throw you off. It's not necessarily that one day of drinking, it's the aftermath, right? So if you're doing that twice a week and you're hungover twice a week, well, that day that you're hungover, you're less likely to train. Or if you do train, you're going to train with lackluster, very low intensity, right? Half-ass workouts. And chances are you're probably not going to stick to the best diet because most people, when they're hungover, they want that greasy fried food, right? So I don't advise people to drink excessively, and I don't advise people to drink more than once a week. So if you're going to go out, have a few drinks, I recommend scale it back to once a week. Stick to the drinks I recommend, right? Your gin, vodka, tequila, rum. Stay away from your fruit juices, your mixes with the club soda, the pop, right? Stay away from your cocktails, your beer, your wine, your spirits. And it really shouldn't have that much of an impact on your results. Okay. Nick, I think I have a tear in my left shoulder. It really hurts whenever I try to bench press or squat with the bar behind my back. I can still do dumbbell presses and flies. Should I just not bench press and squat for a few weeks, or would it be better to just go lighter on these exercises? It's most likely not a tear if you still have mobility and flexibility doing dumbbell presses. What it sounds to me like it's a strain. Because if it was a true tear, you wouldn't be able to do any presses whatsoever. I've worked with a few people who have actually torn their rotator cuff before, or have torn an anterior deltoid or medial deltoid, posterior deltoid. They can't do the movements. And if it's a micro tear, unfortunately, it doesn't need surgery, but you still can't do those movements. So the fact that you can do pressing movements, that tells me that you do have mobility and range of motion in the actual deltoids and rotator cuffs and the scapula and the rhomboids. So it's most likely a strain. In any event, what I'd recommend doing is taking a break from those movements, the barbell movements, the squats, just for a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. It's hard to give you an exact timeline because, I don't know the injury. I don't know how severe it is, but it sounds to me like it's a strain and not a tear. I wouldn't do lighter weights. I would just avoid those exercises for now, and I would continue along with your dumbbell presses. In exchange for barbell back squats, you can do ball wall squats, you can do hack squats, you can do leg press, you can do lunges. So there's all kinds of exercises you can do as alternatives to barbell back squats, right? You don't have to do barbell back squats, just like you don't have to do barbell bench press. I'm a firm believer that when people are having shoulder issues, and the reason why the bar tends to bother them is because the bar is in a fixed range of motion, right? You can't really dictate where the bar goes. It's just going up and down. Whereas with dumbbells, you create the plane of motion, right? So dumbbells are a little bit easier to use than barbells. So that's why usually when I'm working with someone who has either a strain in the rotator cuff or is dealing with reconstructive shoulder surgery, I have one guy in my roster right now who's dealing with that. I'll have them on a dumbbell only program and I'll stay away from the compound movements for the time being, because using those bars, putting the bar behind your back, it's very strict, and it keeps everything very tight and it limits your range of motion, right, on the actual joint. So it sounds to me like it's a strain. I would give it 3 to 4 weeks of not doing those exercises. And if it doesn't get better, then you might want to go see a doctor and see about getting an MRI done just to see what's actually going on in that rotator cuff. Because it very well could be a tear, but it doesn't sound to me like it's a tear. It sounds like it's a strain. Okay. Nick, could you please tell me how I can firm up the back of my arms? I lift weights twice a week with a trainer, but we usually do 2 full body workouts. Is there anything I can do to give more focus to this area? I think this is the most common question that I receive from women, and it has to do with the triceps. And a lot of women struggle with this area, especially as they get older. They get the flabby arms, right? Called the flabby arm syndrome, the bingo arms, like bat wings. And it's very common with women. And the reason why is because there's a buildup of estrogen in this area, just like there's a buildup of estrogen in the inner thighs and the glutes. So those are areas that you have to watch as a woman as you get older. Now, as I mentioned before on the channel, if you're struggling with your triceps, there's two things that you should be doing. One is that you should be giving your arms their own day, right? Going to the gym, like you're doing 2 full body workouts. My recommendation, add another day onto that and do arms only. And you have to hit those arms with heavy weight and high volume. It's crucial. Okay, I can't stress this enough. There's so many times I'll see women in the gym playing with 3 pound dumbbells or doing cable press downs with like 20 pounds, very easy, barely breaking a sweat. You have to lift heavy weight. It's the only way. You cannot firm up your arms or tighten your arms or tone your arms with 3 pound dumbbells and, playing on cables with very lightweight. It's not going to happen. Okay, so my recommendation, superset your arms. So you're doing like, say, dumbbell curls with tricep rope press downs, superset them back and forth, 4 sets per exercise. Throw a drop set in at the end of each round. So in your 4th set of the rope extensions, throw in a drop set for another 15 reps. Same thing with your biceps. Don't neglect your biceps because you need to make sure that you're hitting both the agonist and antagonist muscle group. Don't just train your triceps because then you're going to have a muscular imbalance if you neglect your biceps. So train them both equally, okay? On top of that, I would recommend keeping your reps between 10 to 15. Okay. So if you're doing 20 reps with anything, unless it's a warm-up set, the weight's too light for you. Okay. So it should be a struggle to stay in that 10 to 15 rep range. My recommendation, pick at least 4 or 5 exercises for your triceps, 4 or 5 exercises for your biceps for both. So 4 or 5 for your biceps, 4 or 5 for your triceps, superset them together, do 4 rounds for each exercise, and give yourself a total of, like, say, 16 sets for your triceps, 16 sets for your biceps, and that should be enough. Do that once a week. Don't do it twice a week, do it once a week. If you're training with intensity, that should be more than enough. Your arm should actually feel it the next day. Anyone who trains arms with me, they usually can't move their arms the next day. And that's how you should feel. Okay. So that's how you have to stimulate those muscle fibers, because otherwise what's going to happen is that arm is still going to be flabby, right? Of course, you got to make sure your diet and your cardio is in check too. But assuming that those two are in check, the weights are going to make a huge difference, because they're actually going to tighten and firm, tone, whatever you want to use, whatever verbiage you want to use, the back of those arms, also known as your triceps. Okay. Nick, what does the term skinny fat mean? Good question. It's a term I've used quite a bit over the years. So I'll give you a good idea, good example of skinny fat. So when I was in a personal training course years ago, we had to do body fat assessments on mock clients. So they'd have people come into the gym and we would do these body fat tests on them with calipers. So I had this one girl who, she was like 5 foot nothing, super skinny. Like when you look at her, she looked super skinny. And every time I did her body fat, I kept getting 31% body fat on her. So I was getting frustrated because I did it 3 times and I felt like I was doing something wrong, because I was thinking to myself, there's no way this girl was at 30% body fat, 31% body fat. I mean, I looked at her like she was skinny. So finally, I just got really fed up and I pulled aside the instructor. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. And he looked at me and said, "You're not doing anything wrong." I'm like, "The girl doesn't work out. Did you ask her?" I didn't ask her. So this is someone that didn't even go to the gym. So she looked skinny, but at the same time, her body fat was high. And that's taught me a valuable lesson, is that body fat percentage is just based on how much muscle you have versus how much fat you have. So if you're someone who doesn't even go to the gym, you don't lift weight, of course your body fat's going to be high because you don't have much muscle. So even though someone may look skinny, if they're not working out, they're what we call skinny fat. So that means they actually have more fat than muscle. Well, not more fat than muscle, but they have higher percentages of fat, right, than someone who actually does work out. So you could look at someone who's saying at 16% body fat for a man, maybe 24% body fat for a woman who does work out. But if they still have that layer of fat, they might look like they're actually a little bit more chubby because they still have to lose that body fat that's covering the muscle. But this is where it can be very confusing. And that's why I always tell people to avoid things like the BMI, because that's a very generic formula. I don't like to use generic formulas when I'm doing body fat. So on clients, usually if I am doing body fat assessments, I will use calipers. But again, it goes to show you that if someone just looks skinny, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have low body fat, right? If they don't work out with weights at all, their body fat percentage will actually be quite high. Okay. So it's the same thing I tell people when they look at guys who are bodybuilders who've got these great physiques. I'm like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean they're healthy. I can tell you the amount of time I trained for competitions and I competed at shows, there were guys backstage that actually had to use oxygen masks because they were huffing and puffing because their cardiovascular systems were so poor. Being on stage for 15 minutes posing just winded them, it took it out of them. And if you're in good shape internally and externally, you should be fine doing these posing. And I mean, I had no problem. I barely broke a sweat when I used to pose, but that's because I did my cardio every day. So my cardiovascular system was excellent. So you've got to be very careful by just thinking that if you look at someone and they're in good shape, that means that they're healthy and fit, because not necessarily. So same thing, if you look at someone who just appears like they're skinny, I promise you, if they don't train enough weights, I can guarantee you their body fat percentage will be quite high. So that's skinny fat. Okay, next question. Nick, is beef an okay food to use to get in my protein? This is an interesting question because last week I was at Costco, and as someone who hasn't had beef for over 15, 20 years, I actually purchased extra lean ground beef. Now, the reason I did that too was I just was getting sick of having ground turkey, chicken, salmon, caught, ground turkey, chicken, salmon, caught. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to get some lean ground beef in, just keep it in for a few weeks, because I'm not a huge advocate of consuming beef year round. Okay. Reason why is because beef is very hard on the digestive tract. But if you're going to have beef, my recommendation is to do what I do and buy the extra lean ground beef and then drain it. Okay. So you don't want to have that fat from the beef. That's not good for you. Okay. It's not like salmon fat. It's not omega-3 fat. It's not good fat. So you want to make sure you drain your beef. One thing I do too is before I actually cook my beef, I actually rinse it off with water. So I rinse it first and then I put it in a pot, cook it, stir it, and then I drain it. Okay. But you wouldn't want to use it year round. And if you're going to stick to beef or flank steak, I would recommend consuming it once a day, maybe 3, 4 times a week. So even though I bought all this beef, I'm not going to be consuming it every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, because again, it's very hard on the digestive tract. So you've got to be careful. And you especially have to be careful if you are genetically predisposed to colon cancer. So if you have colon cancer that runs in your family, beef is something that you not necessarily want to avoid, but you want to limit. You want to stick to your other protein options like the ground turkey, the chicken, salmon, cod, and so on. If you're a meat eater, right? If you're not a meat eater, the beans, lentils, kidney beans, so on. So that's my issue with beef. So it's not. I don't want to say it's a bad protein source. It's not a bad protein source. It's actually quite a good protein source. A lot of creatine in beef. But my recommendation is don't consume it year round and don't consume it every day. Okay. So if you're going to do it like what I'm doing for the next, let's say, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, I'll consume it every second or every third day. And that's enough for me, right? I don't need to have it more than that. So it's not a bad protein source. Preferably, I'd rather you be consuming chicken predominantly, ground turkey, like I said, salmon, cod, snapper. Fish is excellent. Most fish is great for you. It's good, high in omega-3 fats. So fish is an excellent option. I know fish is not the most cost-effective option for a lot of people, and beef is fairly cheap. So if you're going to consume beef, just as I say, extra lean ground beef. Don't buy regular beef because that's loaded with fat. Extra lean ground beef, drain it, wash it, and that should be okay. Consume no more than 2, 3 times a week. Okay. Nick, with all the latest research showing the negative impacts of brown rice, do you still recommend consuming it over white rice? It's not okay. It's not latest research. People have been complaining about brown rice for years. They've been talking about the arsenic, the amount of arsenic that's in brown rice. Now, my response to this is always just like the beef. Before you cook your brown rice, rinse it. So you want to just rinse it with cold water, then put it in your rice cooker. Okay. That's going to help eliminate a lot of that arsenic. Now, again, if you're concerned about the arsenic, you would have to be consuming large quantities of brown rice all day, every day for that to have any impact on you whatsoever. So I tell people not to worry about the arsenic. Unless you're someone who's consuming like 8 to 10 cups of brown rice a day, all day, every day, you're not going to be impacted by the arsenic value, especially if you're rinsing your rice. So no, I'm not going to ever say that white rice is better than brown rice. Brown rice is full of fiber. White rice doesn't have any fiber, very little fiber. Um, Brown rice will allow you to stay fuller for a longer period of time. So it allows your insulin levels to remain stable along with your blood sugar levels. Whereas white rice, you'll find when you consume white rice, most people, it spikes their insulin levels, so they're craving more carbohydrates an hour later. So this is why I don't recommend consuming white rice. But again, people want to argue and say, no, white rice is better than brown rice. I mean, this is not new. This is something that's been going on for decades. So it's the argument of white rice versus brown rice, which is better. If you want to know the best type of rice is actually black rice. I personally just don't like the taste of black rice. But if you're looking from a health component, black rice is the healthiest type of rice. It contains very low arsenic, and at the same time, it does contain high amounts of fiber. So if you're someone who's worried about the brown rice, go to black rice. I just don't eat it because I don't like it. But from a health component, black rice is the healthiest version that you could be having right now. So if you're going to consume white rice, brown rice, black rice, and you're looking from a health standpoint, I would say black rice. But brown rice to me is great because, again, it's going to keep you feeling fuller for a longer period of time, give you lots of energy. It's not going to allow your insulin levels to spike, your blood sugar levels to crash like white rice does. That's why I recommend people consume it. You don't have to listen to me. You can do, if your white rice works for you, great. I'm not going to argue with you. But in my experience, people who consume white rice, they tend to overeat and they tend to be hungry like an hour later. So that's why I don't recommend white rice. Okay. Nick, people at my work always make comments about me bringing my own meals to work. We have lots of meetings that are catered, but the food is all greasy and fattening. The comments are starting to get on my nerves. What do you suggest saying to people who make comments about your meal prepping and workout lifestyle? In the past, I would probably give them passive aggressive comments and just tell them I don't want to eat garbage like you, eat like shit, feel like shit. I want to take care of my body and my health. But as I get older, I feel like those passive aggressive comments do no good to anyone. I don't want to put someone else down for the way that they're eating. And I don't like to be put down for the way I'm eating. But at the same time, I'm going to be the bigger man and just smile and say, I like to eat my food. It works better for me. I just feel better. I sleep better. I recover better. I train better with my diet. I find that I'm very sensitive to, the greasy food, the junk food, the fried food, and therefore it doesn't work well for my digestive tract. And that's it. And I don't mind explaining that to someone. And that's really the truth. There's no reason to put someone else down because the way that they're eating is not the way that you're eating. Do I think people who follow poor diets have a little bit more, they give into temptation and they might be a little bit more weak-minded when it comes to food, possibly, but it's not my place to say that to someone, right? So, I mean, how someone chooses to eat is how they choose to eat. So, unless you're one of my clients, I never say anything to someone about their diet. If I'm going out with someone and they're having burgers and fries, I'm like, you do you. I have no comments, nothing to say. If you're paying me for my expertise on nutrition, dietary nutrition, and training, I will gladly tell you not to have that food, and I will tell you why not to have that food. But it's not my place, right? So, people will always make fun and people will always say things. If you're someone who does meal prep and you eat a clean diet, I think a lot of times people who do make fun, they're putting you down because they know that they themselves can't do it. They can't remain disciplined on their diet. They give into temptation too easily, right? So I think that's why a lot of those comments come from people who say, oh, you're weird, you're prepping your own food, you're always bringing your own lunch. I'm like, you know what? It works better for me. I feel better. I save money. Eating and making your own meals is a lot cheaper than going out for every meal every day, right? And again, if you're someone who does work in places where they cater the food to you in these meetings, I strongly advise you to meal prep because most of those food options are not the best, right? And again, eat like shit, feel like shit. So if you prefer not to feel like shit, don't eat like shit. All right. Last question. Nick, I watched your Q&A last week and think it's ignorant of you to judge a father who has a bit of a tummy and doesn't exercise regularly. As far as I know, you yourself are not a father, so how can you have any clue as to how much time and effort goes into raising your kids? Some dads put their families first before just looking good with their shirt off and living in the gym. All right. I'm not going to debate that with you. No. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. Absolutely. I think so. What I was saying, though, was I wasn't necessarily judging someone, a father who is not in shape. I was simply saying that I think you're setting the bad example for your kids, that you're not making the time to work out. And here's the thing is that there are 24 hours in a day. So no, I don't have kids. But at the same time, if I were to have kids, I would plan accordingly. So I would plan it to the point where the person that I'm with, both of us could have time to go to the gym. And whether that means hiring a nanny for 3 or 4 hours a day, just so we can do that, I would budget accordingly. So I could do that. So there is time. So, if that means the person I'm with, if that means that they get to go 2 hours to the gym, or because it takes like an hour to go to the gym and then shower and all this stuff. So I can watch the kids. And then when I go, she can watch the kids. And if that doesn't work for our schedules, no problem. Bring a nanny in for 3 or 4 hours a day so we can both go to the gym. I don't see anything wrong with that. And, so when people tell me there's no time, I'm like, well, of course there's time. You just have to budget accordingly for it. So you're right. I don't have kids, but that's what I would do. I would just make sure that I can still put my gym for me, for my not just my physical health, but my mental health, and set a good example for my kids. So it's not me shaming people who are out of shape or who don't exercise, not at all. I mean, it's just, do I respect that? No, because I think it sets a bad example for your kids because it shows your kids that I don't think that it's being that you're sacrificing anything for your kids. I think it shows that you're just lazy. You're not taking the time to make your health a priority, which is a bad example. So if you are a father and you have no time because you're working and your wife works or your partner works and it's really hard to find time, if you're working that much, then you should be able to afford to have a nanny come in for the 3 or 4 hours to watch the kids. And that's not a big deal. So that's what I would do. So and the reason I say this too is because I have clients that do that. I have clients that have little kids. I have clients that have kids who are like 1, 2, like and they're both still coming to the gym. They find time. You know, when one of my clients is at the gym with me, the other one's watching the kids. When the other one's there, the other one's watching the kids. When they want to go out on a date night, they have a nanny. So you just have to budget for it. So there's really like no excuse, in my opinion. But you're right. I'm not a father, so you know you have your opinion. You say it's ignorant of me to make these comments, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you on it, but I wasn't judging anyone. I was just saying I don't respect it because I think it sets a bad example, right? And it sets a bad precedent. So if you want to set a good example for your kids, you should show them that yes, even though you are busy and even though you are working 40 plus hours a week and trying to raise a family and take care of your kids, you still find time, you still make time to go to the gym. And the reason I know it can be done is because I've seen it done with multiple people I work with. So if they can do it, you can do it. If you're going to have kids, plan responsibly, budget accordingly. Make sure that if you and your partner both want to work out and you know you're both working 40 hours a week, like I said, you're making money, hire that nanny to come in 4 or 5 times a week so you can go to the gym and get your workout in. Done. It's not that hard. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Tuesday, March the 5th. As a reminder, if you do have any questions related to your diet, your training, or supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com or DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching my YouTube channel. Thank you for supporting my business. Thank you for supporting my online coaching app, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.